Hey YouTube, my name is Nick and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to get ahead financially, and it might be easier than you think, so make sure you stick around to the end of the video. There's going to be a bunch of tips and tricks along the way, stuff I implement, maybe some expert stuff kind of like that, so make sure you stick around for all that great content. A quick disclaimer as usual is that I'm not a financial advisor, nor am I providing you with professional advice whatsoever. The ideas presented in this video are for entertainment purposes only. You and only you are responsible for the decisions that you make with your money. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. So I don't think personal finance is necessarily taught enough in high school, middle school, growing up, and kids might develop, these bad habits of living paycheck to paycheck, but it doesn't really matter much because, they're living at home, parents might cover a lot of their expenses, so they don't see an issue with living paycheck to paycheck. But if these important personal finance concepts aren't taught to them, these bad habits are going to follow them into adulthood, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to correct later in life than just to get into these habits early, and it'll also lead to a lot less stress. The first thing that I think kids should be taught, and that I think should just be learned as a skill, is creating a budget. The word budget has a really bad connotation around it. People think, it's locking yourself up, having no fun, never being able to go out to eat, and that's not true at all. All a budget is a plan. It's a healthy spending plan. I feel like the word budget gets the same kind of rap that the word diet gets. You can't, you have to be super disciplined, you can't enjoy yourself whatsoever. That's not true at all. Make a budget that you enjoy. Just make sure that you're living below your means. And living below your means is a super important financial concept, and we're going to get into that a little bit. That's all I'm saying, is just make a budget that you enjoy, just so you know that you're not overspending. It's just, to keep yourself in check, pretty much. And the concept is simple. Like I said, this video is going to be about getting ahead financially, and you can't get ahead if you're spending more than you make. You're always going to be in a deficit. Therefore you can't build up, these emergency funds, these investments, and these are super important when talking about financial health. You need an emergency fund, you need investments. And so when making a budget, you want to list out all your income, you want to know how much money is coming in that month, and you want to make sure that you're, living below your means. Here's where this concept ties into the last one. You can't be spending more than you're making. And so after you budget for all the necessities, that's what I recommend doing first. Get your income number, subtract any necessities. You might be surprised about how much money is left over to put towards things that you actually enjoy partaking in, such as going out to eat, maybe going to a movie, a concert, stuff like that. Those expenses need to be planned for, because if they're not, they tend to be consumed a lot more than what one can afford. A third overall tip, you should all be doing this anyways. I'm going to assume most of you watching this, if you're over the age of 16, you have a savings account open. That savings account is to put money in and not withdraw from. Now you might be like, why am I putting money away if I don't want to withdraw from it? You can withdraw from it, but the caveat is it must be an emergency. This is what's going to be called an emergency fund. It's a savings account for surplus money in case of an emergency. That's what I want you to treat your savings account as. Now, emergencies include but are not limited to pop tires, your car breaking down, your basement flooded, if you're laid off from your job. Those are all emergencies. Now, they don't include getting fast food because you forgot to pack food, or getting new shoes because they're on sale this time when you go to the store. I'm not saying you can't budget for these activities. Absolutely, if you enjoy fast food or shoes, put these things into your budget. But you absolutely should not be dipping into your emergency fund for them. That's absolutely ridiculous. Those are not emergencies. And I feel like a lot of people try to convince themselves of what are and aren't emergencies because they might have some leeway. I want you to be really, really honest with yourself about what an emergency is, and if you really need to take this money out, or, if it's just a want that you're trying to satisfy. After a few months of practice, you will be a pro. Along the way, you're going to find certain tips and tricks and certain mechanisms that you're going to put into play to make sure that you're following your budget. Now, what I do, this is just something I kind of came up with on my own. I'm sure other people do it too, but when I make my budget, I know how much I'm going to spend for that month. Okay, I have it all written out. I have my expenses. I kind of know how much of that I could put on my debit card, and so I load up my checking account for exactly that much money for the month. So I get paid in all cash for my job, so I just make a deposit on how much that is. I put the rest in savings or wherever it's supposed to go. And so when that amount runs out, and I want to spend more money, I'm faced with a decision. I can either not buy it at all, or I can spend cash. And cash has been proven time and time again to reduce overall spending in general. And so when I have to sit there and reflect on this buying decision, I'm going to be more likely to talk myself out of it, because I might not need it, or I might want to spend money elsewhere than on this certain item. And also, there's a huge overdraft fee that might also be a deterrent. You don't want to spend an extra $35 just because you needed, whatever, a Big Mac. I don't know, whatever your individual needs are at that exact moment. So that's just one sort of safety mechanism that you could put into place to make sure you're not overspending that amount that you originally budgeted for. This way you could stick to your budget a lot easier. So quick recap. It's a 3-step process right here. There's 3 certain, tips and tricks. Number 1, live below your means. If there was one personal finance term, the all-encompassing personal finance term, it would be live below your means. I mean, you just hear anyone say that. It's pretty simple logic too. You can't necessarily get ahead if you're always in a deficit from last month. Again, making a budget doesn't have to feel like you're being locked into something that you don't want to do. Make a budget you like. Like I said, it's super important that you're still having fun and stuff like that. Don't, stress yourself out. This is about removing stress, not putting more stress on your life. It all boils down to not overspending, hence the budget. You have your income, you have your expenses. If your expenses are more than your income, you might need to cut back on certain things, maybe downsize, stuff like that. If your income's more than your expenses, great. Maybe you could put some more towards saving or towards investing for retirement or Christmas presents. If you plan for that in the beginning of the year, it won't be such a hit in your budget at the end of the year. Start to save, open that savings account, build that emergency fund for when disaster strikes, because it will. I've had a flat tire before. It's, maybe $200-300 to get a new tire if you don't put it on yourself. Maybe your basement gets flooded and you have to repair all of those damages. And, it's just little stuff like that. Not necessarily little stuff, but when it does strike, you won't be, set behind as much as, you'll have that money. It'll come out of your savings account. Then you start building again for the next one. It's just important to be ahead on these things instead of behind. And then make sure you put these safety mechanisms into place. Maybe you pay all in cash because you find you spend less when you pay in cash. Or you use my tip, you load up your checking account for the exact amount that you're going to spend that month. Personalize this kind of stuff. If you find something cool, let me know. Put it in the comments of this video. Maybe I'll use it. But just make sure you personalize it and it's stuff that works for you. And so after a few months, you will definitely notice less stress in your financial life. And saving will become fulfilling. It's always important to focus on your future with these things. And not just with money, but every aspect of your life. And one of my favorite quotes is, the best time to start was yesterday, and the next best time is today. I was actually putting off making this video. I was busy with college or whatever, and I just thought of this quote. I'm like, screw it, let's just make this video. So just keep that in mind sometimes. That's enough philosophy for the finance channel. If you enjoyed the video, it's great. Subscribe, leave it a like. If you have other video ideas for me, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.